The next step is creating simplified shapes from more complex objects. So I'm starting out by tracing the oval and the square on this light bulb. So this is breaking everything down into the simplest form possible, which is just this oval and square, like I said. And then I'm going to outline those in the space to the right. So this is what you would take and then draw your detailed contour outline over top of it eventually, but not right now. Right now, we're just focused on breaking things up into simple shapes to get used to doing something like that. For this cup, it is a rectangle and circle. So I'm starting out and tracing over the image, and then I'm going to try to focus for this one on getting my proportions accurate with the placement of where the shapes are. So I'm going to start out and draw the rectangle, which is a little bit shorter at the bottom, making more of the trapezoid shape. And then I'm going to add my circle to it. But first, I'm double checking the length. So the top of the cup versus the bottom of the cup. Obviously, the bottom of the cup here is not as wide, so I'm going to draw that a little bit shorter. But I'm double checking the width of it by measuring with my pen. So I held my pen to the exact width of the picture, and then I held that space over to the right to make sure that the line that I drew was the same length. And now I'm doing the same thing for the circle. I'm making kind of like a starting and ending point for where the top and the bottom of my circle are going to start and end. So I'm drawing that circle now. It is more of an oval, but it's on the side, and I have that placed. So now I can move on to this next one, which is a spoon and a fork overlapping. The spoon and the fork are going to be simple circles and squares or rectangles. So a circle for the spoon, the main part of the spoon, and then I'm drawing a long, thin rectangle over top of where the handle is. And then for the fork, it's going to be a rectangle where I'm outlining around the outside of the top of the fork and the fork spokes there. And then the handle of the fork is a longer rectangle. Now, as I'm coming over here, I'm going to double check my measurement. So I'm taking the width of the circle or oval here for the top of the spoon, and I'm making a spot where the top and the bottom of my oval are going to line up. So I'm drawing an oval here. So this is helping to get accurate measurements for when I do end up drawing my detail, everything is proportioned out correctly. A lot of times people will draw something extremely detailed and then realize they messed up and have to erase all of that time that they spent drawing that detail and start over. This is keeping it very simple. This is making sure that all of our shapes, proportions, sizes are correct before adding that detail, so we don't have to erase and go back to the start. So right now I'm working on the rectangle here for the fork, and I'm looking at where it overlaps with the spoon. So it's overlapping that thin part, the handle of the spoon, the thin rectangle, and I'm drawing where the outline of that fork handle is as well. Now moving down to the scissors, I'm drawing circles for the handles, and then small squares coming off of those, or rectangles coming off of those, and then long, thin triangles for the base of the scissors there, or the blades of the scissors. Now I'm double checking measurements. I checked to see if the blades of the scissors was the same length as the handles, and they were pretty similar, pretty much the same. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I draw the blades here of the scissors. I'm going to double check the measurements of the rectangle and the circle for the handle once that's done. Look at where the rectangle comes off of the silver or the blade part of the scissors, and then where the circle lines up with those rectangles. So try to keep everything as accurate as you can with those simple shapes and the sizes as well. Now for the leaf, it's a very long, thin rectangle, almost just a line for the middle there, and then circles. But look at the size of the circles. They are not all the same exact size. They're smaller towards the bottom, and then they get a little bit bigger as you go down. So double check the size of your circles. Double check you're drawing the correct number of circles. So I counted to make sure there's 4 on each side, and I'm drawing 4 circles on each side as well. Look at where they line up with the stem. Are they overlapping or are they next to it? Now flipping over, we're going to be working on the back. We're going to do the exact same thing to start. Simple circles for this caterpillar. You could do more circles than what I have here. You could almost do thin ovals for every tiny little section, but we're keeping it simple. We're going to simplify it. I only did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circles for the caterpillar. Look at the angle of the circles or the ovals here. Look at which ones are thinner, which ones are wider as you're drawing them. The only thing we're going to do different now is go over top of the simple shapes that we outlined with the contour outline. So just like what we did for the modified contour. I outlined around the contour of the caterpillar, including all of the details of line variation, texture, highlights, shadows. Outline as much as you can detail-wise. Now we're going to take this and grab another piece of paper or your sketchbook and do a blind contour drawing of the caterpillar. Tape it down if you need to so it's not moving around on you, but really focus on all of the details. So you are not looking at your paper at all, you're just looking at the reference image of the caterpillar. Look at all of the line variation, outline highlights, shadows, all of the detail that you can find on this, and really pay attention to looking only at the reference. Once you're done with that, we're going to come back to our drawing here, and we are going to do a modified contour drawing. But start out first with your simple shapes. So I'm counting those circles that I did, looking at which ones were wider ovals or thinner ovals, and then this end one is kind of turned on its side a little bit. And then once you have the size of your circles as accurate as you can get them, we're going to go in and outline around the caterpillar. So this is where we're doing our modified contour drawing. You are still mostly looking at the reference picture, looking at what you had already or previously traced and outlined and drawing those lines. But we are looking at the placement here now, the placement of it compared to where you have your simple shapes drawn. So on top of those circles, I'm just outlining around them. So you can see that that really helped to create the spacing of our caterpillar and the placement of all of the details and the line variation. And now I'm coming in with the outline of that shadow that kind of goes across the inside of it there. Now we are going to repeat that same process with this bolt. So I'm going to start out by outlining the simple shapes. Now there's a circle to start with here, or an oval, and then I'm outlining around the square shape on top of that circle, and then another square shape on the very top. And you can almost outline that little circle shape that's on top of the square, sitting on top of the end of that screw there. And then once that is done, you're going to go in with your contour outline. So this is just getting us used to really seeing what's actually there before we move on to drawing our blind contour and modified contour. I'm outlining all the details I see, all of the ridges on this screw, highlights, shadows, outline everything that you can, every detail inside, and then every detail around the outside. Move back to that same piece of paper or page out of a sketchbook and look just at your reference image and not at the blind contour drawing. This is again getting us used to seeing all of the detail without our mind kind of making up what we see. We want to draw what is actually there versus just a quick symbol for what is there. We're drawing the details around the outside of the screw and then coming back and doing our simple shapes. So think back to the simple shapes we did. We started with the circle, the square, a smaller square on top of it, and then the circle there. Now I'm going to double check my size relationships between how big is my circle or the width of the oval compared to the width of my square. They are about the same size. So I'm drawing that here, and then I'm doing my smaller square on top, and I'm looking that there is space on the outside of either square. So I'm drawing that spacing there, and then how there is space from the bottom of my larger square between where that larger square and smaller square start. And then I'm drawing the smaller circle on the very top. So just double check the size relationships, look back to that original square and circle that you had. Make sure that there is enough space between each, and that nothing really looks off between those size and spacing of each shape before you add that detail. So now I'm going in with the modified contour. I'm looking at where I have my basic shapes and cleaning up the edges. So it's not staying as a perfect square. The corners are more rounded on this bolt. And then same with the circle, it's not actually going all the way around, but it's stopping where that top of the bolt is. And then I'm outlining the little highlights, shadows, and ridges that I see on there. So as you're working on this, just really take your time, slow down and look at all of the shapes. Double check the size relationships of your shapes. Use your pencil to check those sizes. You can check the angle as well. So hold your pencil to the angle of a line and then move that same angle to yours in order to double check that angle is the same in your drawing as it is in the reference picture.